So which house system should you be using? Placidus or whole sign houses? It can be really confusing to figure out which house system is right for you. So I'm going to be breaking down the differences between the two to help you figure out which house system is going to be best for you, especially as a business owner who's interested in using astrology to start, grow, and scale your online business. So first of all, what is a house system? Simply put, the house systems are the specific way that the birth chart is laid out. We all have all 12 signs and all 12 houses within our birth chart, but the way that the houses and the signs are divided in the birth chart really depend on which house system you're using. The two most popular house systems to use are either Placidus or whole sign. So first, let's talk about what each house system is. Starting with Placidus. So Placidus is the most common house system that you'll find if you use any type of online chart calculator to figure out your birth chart. Most of the time it will default to Placidus house system, so you've already been familiar with it without even realizing it. Now, Placidus is calculated by the Earth's rotation, making it less time-based than whole sign houses. It's also an unequal house system, meaning that some houses, depending on the activity that's going on in there, maybe you have more placements or more planets in a certain house than another, that will make that house bigger. That's because the houses are divided up based on activity going on within the chart. So for example, if you have a placement that begins at a certain degree, let's say 17 degrees is where your rising sign starts, that means that within Placidus house system, your first house won't start until 17 degrees. So this unequal house system makes it a little bit tricky to read, especially if you are a beginner or quite new to astrology. This also means that you have interceptions within the houses, meaning that you can have two signs within the same house. Placidus is most commonly used in modern astrology, and this connection is a significant one because this plays a really big role in helping you to figure out which house system is going to be best for you. Now let's talk about whole sign houses. Whole sign houses are a time-based house system, meaning that the chart is laid out depending on the specific time of birth or creation of the chart, depending on if we're talking about a personal chart or the chart of an event. Whole sign is also the house system that was used in ancient astrology. In fact, modern astrology didn't really become a thing until much later. And at the same time, Placidus house system didn't emerge in popularity until much later as well. So when traditional Hellenistic astrology was the main type of astrology being used, whole sign by default was the house system that was used. Unlike Placidus, whole sign house system makes it really simple to understand and figure out even if you're a beginner. That's because all of the houses are equal. They all start at 0 degrees and they end at 29 degrees. And there is only one sign that rules each house. If you have a Libra rising, Libra is going to be ruling over that first house from 0 degrees all the way to 29 degrees. It doesn't matter if you have a specific placement within those degrees, they will all fall within that first house of Libra. This makes it really simple to not only calculate your chart, but also to interpret it, even when you're a beginner. Interceptions aren't a thing, and it also makes it really easy to adapt other astrology techniques to the chart to answer other questions. In my own journey, I started learning astrology through modern astrology, and by default, I was using the Placidus house system. Now, this came with its own pros and cons. Most astrology today follows the modern astrology tradition and by default uses the Placidus house system. Now, even though this is how I originally began to learn astrology, it really didn't resonate and click with me, and I wasn't sure why. It wasn't until I learned about the history of astrology and realized that there are so many different types of house systems to use that I realized there were other options. And so I made the decision to switch from studying modern astrology using the Placidus house system and instead moved into being a traditional Hellenistic astrologer who uses the whole sign house system exclusively. So if you were to ask me as a business astrologer, who practices traditional astrology, which house system I recommend, I'm always going to recommend that you start and primarily use the whole sign house system. And here's why. The biggest difference in focusing and using whole sign houses exclusively is that this is how the birth chart is designed to be read. Whole sign houses were the default. Ancient astrologers from the beginning of time have always used and gravitated towards whole sign houses. And when it comes to the astrology practices that we're familiar with today, such as reading horoscopes or getting consultations, these were always used within traditional astrology by using the whole sign house system. Again, it is a time-based system. So when we're talking about using astrology to figure out your fate and fortune, which is where the origins of astrology really come from, then whole sign houses make so much more sense over Placidus. This also makes the biggest difference when it comes to consulting with the birth chart, because when it's done in whole sign houses, it becomes so much easier to figure out and navigate this system, especially when we're getting into other more advanced techniques such as predictive readings or interpreting the transits. Now, neither house system is perfect, okay? They both come with their own challenges. However, when it comes to both honoring the tradition of astrology and also relating to which house system resonates the most with me and with most people who are learning with or using astrology, whole sign houses just make so much more sense. The biggest thing that I see when I'm using whole sign houses with my clients is that it's so much easier for them to understand how astrology is playing a role within the consultation and acting out in real life. Within Placidus, there's just so many additional complications that make it really hard for someone who is more unfamiliar with astrology to really grasp how it's working through their chart. And for the kind of astrology that I work with, which is business astrology, it really makes a difference in prioritizing whole sign houses. Why I use whole sign houses exclusively as a business astrologer has a big part to do with the midheaven. The midheaven is one of the main placements that I work with within the birth chart. Now, in Placidus, the midheaven will always be on the 10th house cusp. It will always be the placement that starts the 10th house. However, within whole sign houses, the midheaven can move a lot more freely. It can be anywhere from the 7th house all the way until the 12th house, but it's most commonly found within the 9th, the 10th, or the 11th houses. I love this because it really makes it clear exactly where your midheaven is. And for it to be such a powerful placement within business astrology, it needs to move outside of the 10th house. It needs to shift and adapt based on your personal birth details. That's how you really get to make the most out of it. Once I understood this and really adapted this to my own readings, I realized just how powerful this was. And that's when I made the decision to use whole sign houses exclusively. So if you are somebody who is interested in learning more about astrology, maybe you want to generate your own chart, or you want to begin working with astrology as a business owner and work with a business astrologer like me, then which house system do I recommend that you use? It is always going to be whole sign houses. Let me know in the comments which house system resonates most with you. If you want to know what it's like to use the whole sign house system and how it makes a difference within astrology, then I recommend that you book a business astrology reading with me. These are my one-on-one readings where I work directly with you and your specific chart to help you use astrology to guide your career and business. The link to book your reading can be found in the description box below, so definitely make sure that you check that out. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye.